So, Jim Irsay is about to get in trouble. Let's be honest. Because the last thing you want to do, well, the last thing you should be doing as an owner is speaking out against the NFL. And while we all agree with Jim Irsay, and he says opinions that we all believe are true, the fact of the fact is, the NFL does not like it when anyone who works for them speaks out. Now, at the end of the day, it is what it is. And Jim Irsay is not a guy who stays quiet. He's very vocal. He's very, outlandish. He gives his takes the way he wants to, and he says what he wants to say. And sometimes he is considered the most unfiltered owner in the NFL. And I think that, a lot of people like him and respect him for that. Not everyone does, but some people do. So he's probably going to be penalized in some way for this, whether or not the NFL goes after the Colts draft picks or he gets fined or whatever. But last night he posted this and he said the NFL admits and understands that they did not make the correct call at the end of Sunday's Colts-Browns game. I believe we need to institute instant replay for all calls, including penalties in the last 2 minutes of all games. Now, what he said was not a problem in my opinion. I think what he said is absolutely correct. I mean, he could have even went farther and said that, listen, we should have, refs held accountable. But he didn't say that, right? He just said, that we need a new system. And why will he get in trouble for it? Well, the reason why he'll get in trouble for saying this is this part right here. The rest of it is fine. The rest of it, the NFL isn't going to be mad about because at the end of the day, every single offseason they have their meetings and they get together and they all say, hey, what can we do to improve? And they all vote and they all, try to improve the NFL. That second part is fine. The first part, obviously, about Anthony Richardson, that's obviously fine. There's nothing wrong there. But that sentence right there is what's going to get the Colts and himself in hot water. The NFL admits and understands they did not make the correct call. The reason why that's going to get them in hot water is because it's like an unwritten rule, I will say. That the NFL, which they do this, refs do this, they contact the teams and say, hey, listen, we messed up and we know we cost you the game. We apologize. And you kind of just let bygones be bygones, right? Because at the end of the day, no matter what you say or do, it's not going to change anything moving forward from that action. And by, as an owner saying something, all it's going to do is get fans upset and people erupted and they're going to, start to yell at the NFL and be mad at the NFL, and the NFL does not want that. Well, I agree that Irsay is absolutely right, and I don't really have a disagreement with him coming out and saying this. There's going to be consequences because the NFL does not want to deal with it. And it's easier to kind of just say, hey, anyone who speaks out against us, you're going to be fined, you're going to be, lose draft picks, than kind of fix the issue or fix the problem. This has been a problem with the NFL for so long. We talked about it in yesterday's video, and I'll keep reiterating the same issue here is the NFL rather walk away and hide than actually address problems in the NFL when it comes to the referees. They don't want to. Because when they start addressing those issues, there's a full-on list of problems that have been going on the last couple years in certain games. And once you get down that rabbit hole, there's no stopping it, right? Kind of like with the whole, Gruden's emails, right? Once you got down that rabbit hole, there was no ending point in any way. Dan Snyder, there was no ending point. So the NFL rather just nip it in the butt and kind of move on and act like the status quo is everything is fine and perfect when it's not. And at the end of the day, it's sad because this is a sport we love and we invest our time and money into, and yet they're not going to fix anything. They're not. And we saw Roger Goodell come out last year and say that, the refs might miss 10% of calls and, miss 10% of the calls. Out of 1 million calls, it's 100,000 calls they would be missing. And, you kind of go through the theory of, would it be awesome to have an instant replay? Yes. But keep in mind, they made PIs a couple years ago challengeable. And what the refs do? They don't want to be wrong. They don't want to go back and say, oh, yeah, we messed up. My bad, guys. Roughing the passer was not roughing the passer. They're not going to change it. They're not going to change their calls based on an instant replay. You're telling me a ref's going to call an instant or going to call a roughing the passer, then go back and say, I was incorrect after looking at it again. Because you know how much backlash that ref's going to get? So you called a roughing the passer call when it wasn't roughing the passer? You just gave them a first down and pretty much almost gave them the game. That's a very, very big backlash. And then the NFL is going to get the backlash of, so your refs aren't even calling the games correctly then. And now it's clear today the refs are not calling the games correctly because guess what? We just proved it in a primetime game. One team would have won because of your bad refs. They're never going to want to do this. They're never, ever, ever going to want to make, full-time referees or any type of ref calls reviewable. Because it would just cause so much turmoil in the NFL when it comes to fans, players, teams, and the NFL that they don't want to deal with it. They don't. The last thing NFL ever wants to deal with is confrontation. They don't want to deal with anyone speaking out, anyone starting stuff, anyone, giving their opinion because it's just going to cause them to have to respond, and they don't want to deal with it. So, while I do agree with Jim Irsay, I think it'd be a good idea / good point. In a fair, honest league, this would be a great theory. But the problem is, that's not what we have. Right? We have a very upside down league, I will say, when it comes to certain things that happen and certain things that get done. It is what it is, though. It's the only real game of football we have, and we love football. So we're going to watch it, and we're going to deal with it, and we put up with it. And you might say, well, you shouldn't put up with it. Well, I mean, what are you going to do? You have three options to watch football is the NFL, the USL, USFL, or XFL. I know the XFL and USFL is combining soon or whatever. But if you want professional top flight football, you have to go watch the NFL. And it is what it is. So Jim Irsay will be penalized for this because of that sentence right there. And it is what it is at the end of the day, he has, he'll probably still say something else crazy and outlandish because that's just how he is. The guy is very unhinged, but it is what it is. I mean, tell me down below your thoughts and opinions. It's sad, but this is a saga that will never end and it won't end anytime soon.